Live tonight from the virtual Daytona International Speedway in Daytona Beach, Florida, we say good evening, sim racing fans, and welcome to the season opener for the 2021-22 Real Sim Racing Sim Speed Shop Winter Series on RaceSpotTV. Well, as always, it is a sunny Daytona Beach, Florida afternoon that opens another season of Real Sim Racing action, and so happy that you're spending a Monday night with us here on RaceSpotTV. The crew's back together with our producer Hugo Luis downstairs, Nolan Rempel, and myself, Evan Pasoko. Happy to be with everybody on the call. And Nolan, it feels like we just did this, right? 2 weeks ago, we crowned an RSR Cup Series champion, but even though we've only been a week without RSR action, the drivers are excited, the new faces are ready to make their mark, and we're ready to embark on a 10-week championship to crown ourselves a Winter Series champion.
And what better place to start it off than at the World Center of Racing, the Daytona International Speedway. It has been a bit of an interesting venue recently, hasn't it? Of course, we saw in the playoffs when the Cup cars and the Cup Series came here. It was a bit of a more processional race, a bit more single file. Of course, with these Xfinity cars here today, that is most certainly not going to be the case. Two-wide action, definitely something we can be expected to see all throughout today's race. I would even dare say three-wide would never be far away.
These high bank 2.5 mile oval is really nothing else like it, and it's going to provide some thrilling racing for us tonight in the Sim Speed Shop 200. Of course, 10-week calendar. It all starts here this afternoon in Daytona with a nice mix of different kinds of tracks. Nolan, first and foremost, as always, this Winter Series is utilizing the NASCAR Xfinity Series cars. So Camaros, Mustangs, and Supras out on track. And we're going to be racing with fixed setups as well. That's not going to change. There is no playoffs. All 10 weeks will count towards the championship with no drops. Starting tonight at a big track at Daytona International Speedway, we make our return to Fontana, California for a night race there next week. You got Iowa, Mid-Ohio, some tracks that you don't see on the active NASCAR calendar in places like Chicago, Rockingham, and Lucas Oil. Tell us some of your favorite parts about this 2021-22 schedule.
I have to be honest, Lucas Oil Raceway is a track that we almost never see on any short track racing schedule, let alone on a Cup Series schedule, or even an Xfinity Series schedule like what we got here. So I have to say, I am definitely looking forward to seeing what our penultimate round is going to have for us. And of course, the very classic Rockingham Speedway. A lot of history at The Rock. Cannot wait to see what rounds 6 and 9 I think would have set for us. I think those are the two I'm looking forward to the most here, to be honest with you.
Going to be a lot of excitement, and of course, with these being those NASCAR Xfinity Series cars, as we take a live look in at qualifying, they race very differently than the NASCAR Cup cars. They will race very differently than what you will see in next year's SimSeats Real Sim Racing Cup Series. The fact that, of course, that next-gen Cup car coming in 2022 going to be a big difference maker. So single car qualifying happening out, 2 laps all the way around this track on your own. The good news for all the competitors, Nola, that are really excited to race tonight is they are all going to be able to, sitting at 39 drivers in queue. These Winter Series races capped at 40 cars, so we will not have to send anybody home in week number 1. I'm sure that's a sigh of relief. And with this being a plate track, Nolan, some guys prefer to start at the back, right? If we were having knockout qualifying, that wouldn't be an option, right? They would be forced to race their way into the race on speed and just try to get a good lap time down. I wonder if several drivers may take it easy or even not qualify at all, intentionally start at the back ahead of tonight's 200-mile race.
And of course, having a 39-car grid is definitely what all of these drivers are hoping for, because they don't have to, worry so much about qualifying. For those of the guys that like to start in the back, they're not going to have to race their way in. They will be more than clear to just sit behind and take it nice and easy all the way throughout qualifying. Just 1 car short of a full 40-car grid. About as packed of a track as you could possibly have for yourself, and that should mean we're in for one heck of an interesting race here tonight. And here's one of the newer drivers that is going to be coming into tonight's race. Tim Johnson, hadn't seen them present at all the way throughout the Real Sim Racing SimSeats Cup Series back in 2021, but they're going to see what they can do here tonight over at Daytona International Speedway in the race, in the Winter Series. He is present in second place, tied for that second position with Anthony DeBarro.
Yeah, a lot of new faces. Of course, we have, it's always about a 60-40 split. I said it last year, and I say it again this year, about 60% of the drivers competing from the Cup Series. There's a look at Anthony DeBarro from up ahead. You'll have some new faces making their RSR debuts. We'll talk about them over the course of the year. We also have some drivers returning to RSR competition that we haven't seen in quite some time. And in the case of Sam Nieto, as you can see, he brings his Discount Tire Pennzoil Ford Mustang down for a quick trip through pit lane. Even some of the returning faces, Nolan, with different looks in different numbers, which is going to be something that we need to adjust to over the course of the season. Another big storyline coming into this, just as we, cap off Andrew Freenosh's 4th consecutive Cup Series championship, is that it was in this series last year where he was denied a different record. He'd won the Winter Series championship in 2018 and 2020. That was back-to-back years with the series not racing in 2019, but Matt Danson came into this Winter Series last year, Nolan, as a rookie, won that championship all the way down to the very last race at Las Vegas. However, Matt Danson will not be competing in this 2021-22 campaign. You can expect to see him back in the Cup cars next year. So does that open up the door for Andrew Freenosh to get back into another championship position? Or do we see the first champion not named Freenosh or Danson since we saw David Comstock win a Cup Series title back in 2017?
The possibility is very much there for other drivers to be able to work their way up and see if they can potentially knock Freenosh off from the throne, especially since Danson is no longer competing. But it is still worth noting that, of course, Freenosh not only won 4 consecutive Cup Series championships, but he also won 2 consecutive Winter Series championships back in 2018 and 2020 as well. So he is going to be quite a firm driver to beat tonight. And even with qualifying being as random as it can be, here at Daytona, with how tight the lap times can be together, he still sits 7th place today. So Freenosh might have a lot of competition behind him, but he is currently sitting good to at least finish this race well inside the top 10.
And it was a very close qualifying session as well. I don't think anybody should be surprised about that, because whenever you go qualifying at a plate track like this, those margins are oh so thin, but it is going to be a great storyline. So let's go trackside, kick off this Winter Series campaign, and take a look at our SimSpeed Shop starting grid. Pole position tonight belongs to Shane Ewing. He will bring us to the green flag with a 54.38, and he will be joined alongside by NASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series competitor for Space Station Gaming, the number 1 of Malik Ray. Tim Johnson will start in 3rd position alongside with Anthony DeBarro. Sam Nieto starts at 5th position, and Joshua Ball is in P6.
That leaves defending champion from the RSR SimSeeds Cup Series season, Andrew Freenosh, down in 7th place with Liam Sheen beside him in 8th. Chris Rabel rounds out the top 10 with Rhett McBride beside him, with Brian Chambliss and Brandon Bowie down on row number 6.
Continuing on down through, Nick Cohan and Cody Harris will make up row number 7. Michael Laraya and Joseph Tice, some of the RSR veterans, middle of the field through P16, ahead of Ross Cato and Brandon 6.
As Jeremy Miller in 19th place, around on the top half of the field with Jared Wymaster down in 20th place. William Schmidt is 21st and James Ross 22nd.
You look at some of the other drivers with the likes of Tom Morano and Nicholas Mara through the top 24 positions. Bradley Burke, Nick Silver, Matt Mara all returning. Kenny Brady making his first start at 2021 as 28th position. Kyle Kamer and Trey Browning are in the top 30.
We're going to have Dominic Howe in 31st place with Dylan Parker 32nd. Dane Cruz is 33rd with Sean Casto 34th. Kyle Trudell and Steve Soa in 35th and 36th.
At the very back of the grid, Benazzi Major, Mike Kaczynski, and Grant Davis round out the 39 cars who qualified in this race. A very late entry for Garrett Hess to slide in and take the 40th and final spot on the grid. Of course, we take a look at the field, and let's talk about this one with our SimSpeed Shop race analysis. Nolan, 80 laps, 200 miles. It's a little bit shorter than a Cup Series race distance here, but in these Xfinity Series cars, the power is just as good. 3 attempts at an overtime finish should we need them later on this afternoon. We're racing in the middle of the afternoon, though, so temps could get high under the Daytona sun.
And a of course, with those 3 green-white-checkered attempts and these Xfinity cars being as racy as they are, a photo finish definitely in the works for us here tonight. With 40 cars all wanted to scratch the bit and go for it, we could be seeing one here tonight as well.
Getting set to go race leader for the 8th time in the history of this RSR Sim Speed Shop Winter Series. It is Shane Ewing's field to control as we say, let's go racing at Daytona. Good start for the field. Ewing breaks out about a 1 or 2 car length advantage for the drivers on the inside of the racetrack as he gets a little bit of bump drafting help from Tim Johnson behind. Malik Ray is number 1 Ford on the outside, slotting back. And now there's a move by Sam Nieto. He'll go bottom to top, looking for a challenge on lap number 1. Rules are the same in terms of the point scoring per race as they were for the Cup Series. You get a bonus point for leading a lap, another bonus point for leading the most. Those are the only bonuses available.
And at a drag race out to the start-finish line, looks like it will be Sam Nieto who will lead the opening lap from Shane Ewing this time around. Ewing gets bumped down to 2nd place at the buzzer. Malik Ray looking to see if he can work his way up and bump draft a little bit with Sam Nieto here through 1 and 2 to maybe get a bit of a run, but that outside line got a little bit unsettled entering the first corner on the racetrack, and that meant that outside line lost a bit of momentum, but Malik Ray will be able to link up here with Nieto, though, give him a bit of a push down the backstretch.
He is going to give him a shove down and into turn number 3. Nieto steps down the hill, takes over the top spot in this race. New race leader, lap number 2, is Sam Nieto. And Malik Ray had to have known that was coming. He's getting pushed by Anthony DeBarro's number 27 Toyota up on the outside. They'll now get the run, and Malik Ray's just going to have to hope that he gets a chance to go to the front without somebody like a Ewing or a Johnston jumping out in front of him and getting in the way. And of course, these races are always a bout of survival, especially when it is the first race of the season, when you're racing with new names, and a lot of these guys just want to get to the end. But there is some 3 wide back there. One of the new faces to this Sim Speed Shop Winter Series, Kenny Brady, Dominic Howe, working on that 3rd lane and trying to make things interesting in this lead pack as Ewing continues to push race leader Sam Nieto on the bottom.
And because it's just those 2 drivers working the top side, they're actually able to make up several positions here. They can get those runs that the inside line can't get, they're all checking out. But heads up, Liam Sheen coming up to block off the top side run. That'll make it a pack of 3 up on top. Dominic Howe going to tuck back into line with that 2nd lane. So Kenny Brady going to have to work now with the machine to work his way up to the front. But how about the charge from the 92 machine to the 54? Look at them powering around the outside of turns 1 and 2. Even with the longest way around the racetrack, they're going to make it 3 wide for the race lead and move Liam Sheen up to the point here in the opening round at Daytona. The 54, all sorts of squirreling. Kenny Brady making everybody a bit nervous as Sheen clears in front of him.
You know, what a job for Liam Sheen to use that to his advantage, and Sheen to an early race lead here at Daytona. He slides down, gets in front of Nieto, and now Kenny Brady has got to work to try to get some of that momentum back after he lost it there, pushing that number 92 machine to the race lead. New look for Liam Sheen, new number as he carries over those JDR graphics colors from his Cup Series car here to the Winter Series. His Chevrolet leads. Of course, we talk about Malik Ray having competed in the NASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series as recently as this past seasonal, and you can see the NASCAR Contender Road to Pro Series decals on that car as he's actively trying to qualify back into that series for 2022. So when you're racing at RSR, you are racing against the best, and Liam Sheen got his bonus point for leading a lap. He's fine. That's all he wanted. He drops down the back straightaway, tucks in line, and gets away for the battle up front.
And that might be a wise move, because look at how Kratos getting up in front here, riding on the top, so they break with a single file, but then it's Howe, Ewing, and DeBarro, all 3 wide, 2, 3 rows deep, potentially even in behind. It is not, it's a very tense situation, and you can tell this is a bit of a ticking time bomb here at the moment. It's going to take one wrong step, one driver moving out a couple more inches that they probably should, and that's going to set everything off here with a big mess. And obviously, you get a car that shoots at the outside wall at the front of the field. That is about the worst case scenario for everybody behind this grouping here.
And it's always tricky to be able to execute that the way you want to, and it looks like, all things considered, it was pretty clean transition there. A couple of drivers still trying to work the outside. That outside line is not something that's going to be there 100% of the time this afternoon. It is going to come and go. You're going to need to keep an eye on where that momentum is at any given moment, and then use that to your ability to try to work your way through the field and make up some positions in this 40-car race. Evidently, many of these drivers have been able to get off and going from the very get-go, and really no issues so far in this race. More drivers, in fact, dropping down to the apron. I wonder if that's Cody Harris down there on the apron, just based on the colors. It is Harris also dropping to the rear. But somebody who isn't are these race leaders. You're on board with Shane Ewing, your pole sitter. He has held the bottom since the start of this race. Since then, he has had Nieto, Brady, and Ray pull down in front of him. That's how he ends up fourth in line. And now Kenny Brady going to go back to the outside, trying to get a push from DeBarro and challenge Malik Ray in his SimSeats Ford Mustang for the race lead.
And of course, Malik Ray led that last lap by. Lead lap number 7 going on to 8. Kenny Brady was not able to get the driver on the outside he might have wanted. Heads up, Dominic Howe now looking to work that top side. He's going to link up potentially with Grant Davis here. Oh, trouble caught in the middle of the field. Heads up, field starts to scramble. Bouncing back and forth still. Look out as one car shoots way down into the grass on the infield. And somehow we don't get a caution out of that. Nobody has turned around. That, I think, has got to be the save of the whole series history.
That was extremely dicey as Shane Ewing made contact with, I believe it was DeBarro, coming off at turn number 2. And then the guy who gets the worst of it all is Josh Ball in the 6 car, making his return because Ewing went to the apron to try to recover that race car. That's where Ball went, and they hit each other again. So watch here. Ewing's going to go up just a little bit right there. And that's the contact with the bar. Now they're bouncing off each other. He goes down, hits Josh Ball there, comes back up, and Josh Ball goes through the grass and is able to make a safe blend back up and onto the racetrack without causing an incident. Maybe a little bit close for comfort if you're Ross Cato's number 12 there. But Josh Ball loses a ton of spots, stays in this race. Crises averted, and nearly a big mess at the start of this race as we stay green.
I told you, it only takes that one driver poking out a couple more inches than they probably should, and it's going to cause a big wreck. We were unbelievably lucky not to get away, not to be elected to the big mess from there. Huge shout, of course, to Josh Ball for being able to work his way back up onto the track. And such a safe advantage. He really lucked out finding that gap there. If he was a bit further up the field, he would not have been so fortunate.
And what that does is it's splintered this lead pack just a little bit. And look at all of that shaking down the back straightaway as Malik Ray got a huge shunt. But the 2 is Sam Nieto, and it upset that number 1 Ford up front. He keeps it under control. But just for a moment, the lead pack split off a little bit. All right, everybody lifted out of the throttle to try to recover it, and it only lasted about a lap or so. And now you can see Malik Ray, after that close call, he said, I'm done. I've got the bonus point for leading the lap. I want to win this thing later on. He goes to the apron. It will drop to the rear of the field as we take a look on board with the Matt Mara up 21 spots in his Mara Motorsports entry. He works on the outside line. They're in the number 6 spot right now. 3rd car in line on the outside as his Ford trails behind Grant Davis. First time we've talked about Grant Davis this afternoon. Another different look, but a great look on his 24 Chevrolet with Hasib Design on board for this 2021-22 Sim Speed Shop Winter Series. It is going to be Davis pushing Sam Nieto on the outside, back and around Dominic Howe, and Sam Nieto returns to the race lead.
So Sam Nieto and that discount tire number 2 Mustang going to be up in front of this thing, and it looks like he's going to stick this one out here with Grant Davis. He's found a drafting partner, and he wants to stick with it. Does not want to give the draft to Dominic Howe on the bottom side. I find this a bit interesting, right, that they're willing to work so much on the top side, and now both of them clear down in front of Dominic Howe. Lucky out a bit that Howe decided to back off and give them a bit of room to work with when he saw what was happening and what might have happened had he decided to stick that one to the throttle.
Oh, and look at that move by Dominic Howe, that slice up to the outside to get in front of Matt Mara. Mara was being pushed by the number 95 machine, that is Bradley Burke, but again, a totally new look on Burke's Chevrolet Camaro for this Winter Series. And Mara not liking the trend that the outside lane has been going in. He will drop down to the inside line, but kind of struggling to get himself situated there on the nose of, I believe, that is Liam Sheen, the 92. Remember how Sheen dropped all the way back? Well, he's all of a sudden, once again, fifth in line on the inside of the racetrack. There's also going to be a lot of, no surprise, winter-themed cars. And as always, the XPM gang from Extreme Performance Motorsports has a lot of winter-themed cars. They're getting some names towards the front. And Jared Weinmaster, Kyle Trudell, and others on the outside of the racetrack as they want to enter the conversation. That 52 machine, Sean Casto now, the big mover. He started this race 34th. He is up right now into P3. Grant Davis started 39th. Nolan, I mean, these guys have worked their way through the entire field in less than 13 laps to get right up here.
Oh, and Castro looking left, right, and center, trying to keep out of San Diego. Got within 2 inches of cleaning out that number 2 car and probably taking half the field with them. So Castro looking aggressive here, trying to see if he can potentially work up some kind of speed and take that lead on the outside line. Dominic Howe is also making me a bit nervous in that number 86 car. He's been trying to look to potentially open up a third lane as well. I think he's trying to make a way through to go for the lead, but the problem is, so far, nobody's wanted to go with him.
And that's the key, right? When that third lane sprouted out early in this race, it only started with 2. But once you got 2 guys committed to it, it was a real and legitimate option. Right now, the outside is there, but they're struggling with commitment. And right now, it's not working good for Jeremy Miller, who's in the number 13 machine. He's dropping it back. And Michael Kaczynski, the pushing help, just unable to do anything with it. And they're going to go all the way down to the low 20s. They work themselves back in line, and we pick up the battle for the race lead once again with Nieto on the bottom. Casto opens the door, almost looked like it was on purpose. Nolan, wonder if he also feels like mission accomplished up front. He will pull to the outside, tuck in line, and give that lead on the outside to Dominic Howe. Howe going to look now to challenge for the top spot.
It could be a fuel-saving tactic as well, right? Because I believe these drivers are going to have to be making a pit stop before this race is over if this goes green. You don't want to be the one guy that's out there, breaking all the air. You're burning so much more fuel than everybody else in behind them. So potentially wanted to just get him back in line now that he led his lap and just save some fuel. Because obviously if you need to come down about 2-3 laps sooner than everybody else, well, that's bad news for you because you need to come down with a bigger group at a track like this, or you're going to find yourself running all alone and easily being 3-4 seconds a lap slower than everybody else around you.
Just listening into some of the driver radio chatter again. A place like this, really an opportunity for you to work with your teammates to be able to kind of formulate a plan and execute. We saw that a lot in those late super speedway races, Nolan, in the Cup Series, right? When we saw the Logitech Gioltis cars, Cozy, DeMerchant, Dance had really worked so well together. We are not really seeing a single group or team dominate this race to this point. Looks like everybody willing to work with anybody, and really the only alliances are who's nearby and could make things convenient to use. So we'll see as this continues on. I mean, Dominic Howe doing a little bit of pinching on the Grant Davis, but he's not too worried about that. Bradley Burke in a position to try to push him and to help him, but Burke's got to think, is it worth getting insane? He's got Get Wet Sports on board his Chevy. That's the new partner for the number 95 team this season. And, good looking race car out there with Dominic Howe alongside Nieto, who impressively enough, Nolan, I mean, some drivers, they'll get to the front and then they'll either drop back intentionally or they'll just kind of get filtered back, right? Because people behind you are always trying to make some moves. I mean, Nieto made that early move for the top position, and he has parked it up here. Every single driver behind him through 14th position started this race outside of the top 10. He's the only top 10 car in Q to have held his track position.
And that is, of course, a very crucial factor in a track like Daytona, where it is so quick to be able to gain and lose spots. You want to be able to see if you can, at least, if not maintain the spot you qualified in, especially if it's up front, but try to make it so you can at least be a bit further, safe to the good, right? And I think for guys like Grant Davis, though, they have not wanted to stick around where they're qualified at all. And you take a look at Grant Davis now, top side. or bottom side, excuse me, leading that inside row just behind San Vieto. 37 places gained in just 18 laps. This means that he has been on the move probably about 2 spots every single lap since he started moving his way up, which is interesting that we find him running in the top 10 so far. He's probably actually made about 8 or 9 spots every lap. So he's already up there and been consistently in this top 5 since about the 6th lap of this race.
And it's a good onboard look there. You can listen to some of the throttle input from Grant Davis as he tries to lift off a little bit into the corner, but then off, because you do not want to be on the bumper of the car in front of you right there on the exit and entrance to a corner. You can push a little bit down the straightaway, but see, just give it enough room that you can see that Ford license plate on the back end of the Etos Mustang. Then you get back into the throttle. As soon as you come off of the banking, it's going to get right in nice and close again. Give it a bit of a touch right there. You do have to be careful in this tri-oval. You don't want to be too far to the left of your quarter panel, but it just goes to show you how much of an arced, good super speedway race it is, Nolan. And it's a point that you made very early in this broadcast, right? The fact that some of those Cup Series plate packages towards the end of the year made it very difficult to pass. That is not the case in these NASCAR Xfinity Series cars.
It certainly is not. You can definitely open up the lanes a lot more easily. It's not like the Cup cars where you needed at least 5, 6 guys to open up a lane. You just need 2 guys that are willing to work with you, and you're already set to go if you guys can stay committed to it. We saw it work for guys like Grant Davis earlier today, and we're seeing it work for a few guys as well. But so far, apart from that bit of a scrap we had really early on in this race, it's only been really a 2-lane racetrack, and that 3rd lane has only been opened up when drivers are moving up to it. It's a fall back down the order from the outside lane.
And one thing we always talk about when we're here at Daytona is the fact that, you do see situations where you can go 3 wide a little bit here, but this racetrack's a lot thinner than what you see at Talladega. And in the Cup cars, we're always saying Daytona you'll probably see 2 wide, Talladega you'll see 3. That 3rd lane is definitely an option. I don't think it's smart long-term, right? I don't want to do 80 laps on a 3rd lane where if I go 2 feet to my left, I'm wrecking a car below me, or if I go 2 feet to my right, I'm into the outside wall. It's good for those little spurts of momentum, but I think it could be an option if we have a 15, 20 car pack late in this race. I would expect them to be using every single inch of iRacing's virtual Daytona International Speedway. After all of that movement, though, in the opening 10 to 15 laps of this race, things have calmed quite significantly from that point. Right now, your lead pack is about, it goes all the way back, but I'd say the main group of cars is that top 12 that are side-by-side, and you got a little bit more side-by-side back towards the 20s and whatnot, but for the most part, everybody in touch, and that's the key, is to just maintain contact with the lead pack and to play it smart. Nolan, you were talking about pit strategy in this race. Well, you would have to get all the way to lap number 40 to be able to do this on a 1-stopper. I'm not sure if that's doable. If you're going for a 3-stopper, then your number's closer to the high, or a 2-stopper, I should say, and make the race 3 stints. That number is going to be closer to a high 20 on the lap counter for pit stops. So we'll know what the strategy is going to be pretty quickly here once we see if drivers are coming down to the pit lane before lap 30 or not.
And how about that 3rd lane looking to open itself up again? I'm watching Jeremy Miller trying to work the outside lane. I thought Billy Gray was going to go with him. He thought about it, but opted to tuck back in line instead. So Miller's got no help over the outside line. But I think around the 27, 28 lap range is where we'll start to be seeing guys come on down if they want to go for that 2-stop strategy that just about splits it up evenly. You're obviously going to be kind of off by about a lap or 2 since you can't divide 80 perfectly by 3. But I'd say at that point, you're close enough.
Just trying to look and see, normally after you kind of take a deep breath after those chaotic opening moments of the race, there was some sort of a problem, right? Somebody was a lap down because they missed the grid. Somebody had to have been involved in some incidents, but we saw, the near miss with Ewing and Josh Ball, and other than that, that's really been it. Everybody, all 40 cars still on track and all within 4.4 seconds of the race leaders. Dominic Howe is going to end up in the Earnhardt sucker hole here in the middle because Bradley Burke going to go to the outside, pushed by the 33 Ford of Dane Cruz, but they just ran out of runway on the back straightaway, and if you're in that 3rd lane, you lose a lot of speed going up the banking, and Dominic Cow's going to be able to survive that, and opens up an opportunity for Nicholas Mara in the 40 to break through in the middle. He's got the 82 machine. That's the Sprite Chevrolet of Benazzi Major following him through.
I think the harm to the outside lane really came when Bradley Burke tried to go up. He tried to go up there and kind of block off the run, but because Dane Cruz couldn't get to the back bumper too much down the back straightaway, that's what really hurt the entire outside run. They all look down to the bottom side, but look at Malik Ray already looking to open up that third lane once again. He's got Liam Sheen going with him, and Bradley Burke might tag up with him as well. Jimmy Miller moves his way to the outside lane, take a ride on board of the Sim Seats #1 on board the contender for Mustang, looking to looks there on the outside line here of Benazzi Major. You've also got Liam Sheen tucked in just behind him. He is now giving him a bit of a tap to back in. And how about up front? Nicholas Mara in the multiple scoliosis #40 car thought about having a bit of a look to the outside line as well, but I think at that point he decided it was not worth cutting off such a major run on the high side.
Yeah, we heard a lot, when we did the Racing for a Cause event last season in the regular season finale for the Cup cars, right here at Daytona International Speedway, and we saw those very same designs on the Mara cars, the National Multiple Sclerosis Society paint schemes on board, and good to see the Maras continuing to support that cause. There's so many other great, partners and charities involved in this Winter Series. Remember last year, the drivers helped donate in correspondence with RSR enough money to donate more than 1,000 meals to families in need through 3 Square Food Bank. And I know that there's been a couple of commitments as well by some of the teams on their own to make some charitable contributions over the course of the season. The next PM will be donating $10 to 3 Square Food Bank for each win, and $5 for each top 5 that their drivers get on track this year. And fellow competitor Tom Morano is matching their $10 donation to 3 Square Food Bank for every single win that an XPM car may get over the course of this 2021-2022 campaign. Nolan, that goes on top of the nearly $750 donation that was made on that charity race for the Cup Series to TLC for Kids in Australia. That race won by Matt Danson. So many good causes as well being represented here on RealSimRacing Monday nights, and happy to see that tradition continue as Malik Ray, not that far removed from intentionally dropping back out of the lead pack, has now raced himself back up into the race lead. He had a nose in front of Nieto last time at the stripe.
Had the nose in front that last time by, but has not been able to clear Nieto for the lead yet, who has been leading this race for a good portion now of the last 20 laps or so. So you wonder if Malik Ray will be looking to get back down in front so far, looking to work with Dominic Howe. They're going to abandon the 86 car for the outside line. So Malik Ray will officially lead this race now, cleared from Nieto, and Dominic Howe in the KSR Toyota Supra looking to see if he can get a run, but he's got a very wobbly Liam Sheen in his own JDR Graphics number 92 Chevrolet looking to power through. Oh, contact! Malik Ray onto the apron. Hang on to it, buddy! And Malik Ray somehow wrestles that thing back underneath them.
Dominic Howe got a little bit loose off of the nose of Liam Sheen, and he made contact with Malik Ray, who got, I think, very minimal right side damage on that car, and it is going to drop him all the way to the back. I think Malik Ray's night may be done following that contact, Nolan, and that goes to beg the question, right? We were just saying that he had dropped to the back, that he didn't want to be in this kind of racing up front this early, and then he goes back up and into the front and gets some damage.
And Ray has taken it down to the garage, so Malik Ray out of the race early on. That is so unfortunate for him. He becomes our official first retirement on the night. It's a shame, really. I didn't think he had too much damage. I think he would have been able to just reset, and he would have been able to gradually work himself back up to the front. He's done it before. He most certainly could have done so again, but that leaves Liam Sheen now to head the way. That's Dylan Parker looking to work on his outside line for the outside line. He's being pushed by Benazzi Major, who's being pushed in turn by Grant Davis. You got Dominic Howe looking to work with Sheen on the inside line, but so far that outside has certainly come in full force, right? I mean, we've been seeing all the powerful runs the outside lane can get throughout the course of these longer runs, and Dylan Parker looking to take advantage of those.
You can see that 24 car at Davis going to the very outside, so he wants to beat Dylan Parker to the very front row, and another close call as Dominic Howe squeezed up Parker a little bit there in the middle. That is another sharp-looking car, that 3-4 to Parker. First time we've really talked about him up towards the top 5 in this race. He started back in 32nd spot. He is plus 29. Again, only Sheen and Nieto are drivers who started inside of the top 10 in this race. Everybody else in the top 20 started outside of the top 10. So it has been a race of the slower cars in Q wanting to race more, and maybe some of the faster single cars dropping to the back and trying to be a little bit more conservative and getting to the end of this race. However, even with those close calls and mistakes, we've made it through now 31 laps. Green in this Sim Speed Shop 200. And because we haven't seen pit stops yet, Nolan, my guess is they can get to the lap number 40 marker and make it on a one-stop strategy.
That's at least what they're going to be attempting here, which then again is going to beg the question, how much does Liam Sheen want to lead this race, or how soon will it be before we see him fade out, just so we can tuck back in line with guys further in the behind. The problem is, when you fade out for the inside line, you obviously have to go down onto the apron, and there's so many cars nose to tail for the inside line, there really is no feasible gap for Sheen to be able to put himself back up into line before turn 3 comes roaring up on him. So it's a bit of a risky move trying to go down to the apron. You could find yourself losing well over 20 spots in just one straightaway. Dominic Howe, though, not showing any fear. He's now going to lead the outside lane from Parker. They made a swap, and now Dominic Howe will look to push to the front.
Dominic Howe is somebody who I think pretty clearly is not going to want to back down, and he says, I'm going to be up here in this conversation all night long, whether, it is easy or not, come hell or high water, and getting the push right down from Dylan Parker, who may have had a little bit of a connection to blink there, and that's always dicey when a car in the middle of the pack disappears for just a moment, and I think it kind of stunted the speed that the outside line had. Without that, I was sure that we were going to see Dominic Howe go back to the race lead in this one. Instead, he trails behind the Brady 2 machine of Liam Sheen, and Sheen gets the nose back in front at the start-finish line. So, all of this continues on, but if 40 is your number, then at some point soon, those cars up top are going to have to start looking for an opening on the bottom to be able to get the pit road. You can see there's really only, 7-8 cars up there on the outside line, and then everybody, I mean everybody, in the field is single filed out from there on back, and Dominic Howe finally clears Liam Sheen. Assist going to Dylan Parker. That was a nice push to get that job done.
You mentioned cars wanting to come on down. Well, further in the back, a couple of guys checked up to allow guys from that outside lane in, so that leaves about 6 cars now trapped on the outside lane. It was going to be 5, but and of course guys actually like Tom Moreno, as well as, interesting enough, Cody Harris, both made their way up towards the outside lane. They want to take up some speed. They pick up an extra couple of spots before they decided to hit pit road themselves, but obviously it's going to be a difficult task getting back down to the inside lane. You obviously can't just turn down, right? Because obviously you're going to be getting yourself with those good old penalty points, which obviously go against you. And for some of the guys that might be a bit closer to race suspensions, you wonder how that might affect them.
Hey, that's always been a fun storyline. Of course, we talked about that a lot late in the Cup Series season, supplemental discipline. Good news for these drivers is that none of that can carry over to this winter series. However, in the future, it may be allowed to. So everybody's on a clean slate, no penalty points, and if the race continues on this trajectory, clean and green like it's been, then it's not going to be a long penalty list, headed into a 2-mile D-shaped oval in Fontana, California next Monday night back here on RaceSpotTV. Dylan Parker wanting to go for the race lead. This is his opportunity. Matthew Barra going to give him the push. A little bit of trouble, though, getting those bumpers to align. They really looked poised to be set up for it off of turn 2. Not meant to be. And you can see Barra really wasn't comfortable on that bumper the whole time down the back straightaway. He'll have to reload and try again. You're going to be hard-pressed to do it here on the front straightaway, though.
4 laps to go before we hit halfway, and that pit stop window is starting to loom. So far, apart from the 6 or 7 cars on the outside line, everybody else behind them has opted to tuck it in single file for the time being. And I find this honestly amazing that we haven't seen anybody fall out for the main portion of the field. You mentioned it earlier that usually we see guys that have their own little struggles, maybe a couple of checkups, see them start to divvy up into their own little packs, or sometimes it even just happens to happen a little bit more naturally. That has not been the case. Everybody's still running within 4.5 seconds, save for Malik Ray, who is still the one and only retirement we've had so far after he made contact with Dominic Howe about 4 laps ago. Dylan Parker, saw him try to take the outside lane this time, poked the nose ahead into turn number 3, but it still wasn't able to get clear. He'll have to work a little bit harder with Matthew Mara if he wants to push that car up to the front of this thing. And with 3 to go now before we hit halfway, still nobody opting to come down to pit. How about the outside lane opening up a bit more? Kenny Brady looking like he wants to do some work with Grant Davis.
Grant Davis backing into the conversation. He's going to make a push on the very outside line, working with Kenny Brady. And, well, I was just saying a lap ago that maybe you should start to think about getting back down to single file to start thinking about pit service. And the race leaders just say, hold my beer. Let's go 3 wide for the race lead. Oh, Parker barely had room, but he did and cleared himself to Dominic Howe with inches to spare. And now Dylan L. Parker has taken over the race lead, and he'll score a bonus point here in the Sim Speed Shop 200. Now we'll see, does Dominic Howe respond? Is he going to go up and work with Mara? Is he going to go up and work with Brady? Or is he content with holding the bottom next time by? Closing in on halfway. Oh, and a big issue for the 24 car. What happened to Grant Davis? He just had a huge drop in speed, and there was heavy damage to Cody Harris, who drove into the back of him. No caution, but damage on both of those cars. And now the race leaders can't agree on who's clear and who's not, and they're nearly wrecking.
That is a tight situation. I wonder if he had to get down, maybe running low on fuel. And Shane Ewing will be the first driver to blink. He comes down to pit road, and he's taking 3 other drivers with him. Tim Johnson is coming in. Ewing's locking up. Nick Cohen is in. DeBarro is in. And smoke flies with 2 tire front end lockups down into the pit lane. So green flag pit stops now underway. 4 cars outside of the top 20 will be the first ones to come down. And I think the checkup that we saw was Grant Davis trying to lift off to get to the inside lane to find a gap. I don't think he realized how close Sheen was to him.
Here's the second look, and watch the 24. For no discernible reason, he just loses a ton of speed there. And again, the big loser of that was the 28 machine, because Cody Harris getting front-end damage. Front-end damage going to be much more terminal than rear-end damage. Race leaders, though, headed to the pit lane. Sam Nieto's in, Kenny Brady's in, and so is the very top car of that group. So the trio comes in. Sheen in the 92 car going to go all the way down to pit stall number 8. I'm expecting these drivers to go for 4 in fuel, because it takes about as much time as you need to fill it up with gas as it does to, get the 4 tires. But let's see, right sides up on all those cars. Are they going to go over to the left sides as well and put 4 on them? Yes, they will. Again, don't think that's out of necessity. We haven't seen too many handling issues so far to this point, Nolan, but I think it's just easy. Right at halfway, 4 tires and a fuel, and Nieto wins that race off of the pit lane. Will that be the race to the net race leader once all of this cycles through?
And here comes the next batch of drivers to slide their way down the pit road. About 10 strong coming in. Heads up, Mara and Steve Soa nearly getting into it on pit entry. And this is a tight situation for these guys further in the back of the field who qualified further behind. Coming in from the front, of course, you have to turn it very early. Jerry Wymaster has missed his pit stall. So disaster for the 48 car. Safarinos making a huge charge around the outside lane as well, just all by his lonesome, leaving about a few more cars to stay out. I predict about 15, 18 or so still have yet to come down to pit. Everybody from first place on back, in fact, down to 16th place, still out there on the racing service. We can expect to see them down in the next 2 laps.
And here comes more service. Benazzi Major will dive out to the pit lane here. He's going to be joined by Josh Ball. A little bit tight there on pit road speed at 60 miles an hour, but those 2 cars do get down and in. New race leader through all of this, Andrew Friedrich. For the moment, Chris Rabel's right there with him. Rabel with the nose in front now on the outside line. How about a new look for Andrew Friedrich, Nolan? Brand new colors on that 88 Chevrolet. Seems crazy that we haven't talked much about him tonight, but he's kind of been hanging back with everybody else, and there he is. And you want to know the cause? The Bring Back Horsepower Chevrolet. We talk about the difference, right, between these Xfinity cars and the Cup cars, and he is a fan of not the big spoiler and the 500 horsepower package, and so he's running the Bring Back Horsepower Chevrolet as Dylan Parker brings in another group of cars.
Well, he'll have a bit of an unfortunate time getting that back with the next-gen cars, won't he? As that's already been confirmed, I believe, about 500 horsepower or so through that one for the next regulations up for 2022 in the NASCAR Cup Series. And you see Friedrich still running the outside lane. Looks at the 00. Looking to drop out of line for the time being. That was, I believe, Garrett Hess that was looking to fall towards the back of the field. He came in right at the buzz with about 1 minute left in qualifying and just made it in for gridding. Friedrich is called. He's making the pit stop for himself this time by, and looks like he'll be taking just about everybody else coming around with him. So Kyle Kamer is in, Friedrich is in, Harris stays out, Cato is in. Here comes Rabel along with William Schmidt, Nick Silver, Bowie. Huge lockup for Friedrich. That's about another group of 9 down to the lane.
And just if you want to know what Andrew Friedrich's campaign is for, Nolan, just to clarify, he wants a 1-inch spoiler and 900 horsepower. That's what he would prefer on the car, but he overshoots his box, so a little bit of a mistake there for Friedrich. Going to cost him a little bit of time. Of course, the current generation and even the engines that are going into those NASCAR next-gen cars make 900 horsepower. They're only restricted to the 550 or 750 that we saw this past season. I believe it is going to be 550 and 650 that you'll see in the next-gen cars next year. But the engines themselves still make 900 horsepower. Last time they were run unrestricted, though, in the Cup Series was back in 2014. So he's able to work his way out, and I think that's almost going to wrap up all the pit cycle. Look at this lead pack here. All the cars who have completed service blending their way back out and around the cars just getting onto the racetrack. And Liam Sheen is probably going to be the race leader. They get around Kyle Kamer, and now we have successfully gone through the pit cycle. Everybody has come in for service. Liam Sheen has taken the race lead, and now we're looking at a 35-lap run to the end of this race. Again, yellow free so far from Daytona.
This is about the longest green flag run I've seen in any Xfinity race in my life here from on the iRacing service. I mean, these guys have been doing a phenomenal job. We've had a few close calls, don't get me wrong. It's been tight a few times, but the fact that we still have so many drivers running in this big pack and up to pace with no damage on them, let alone a caution, is just unbelievable.
Really is exciting stuff, and this gives these drivers an opportunity to make moves. I mean, we talk about how many drivers have come from the back onto the front. Now is the point where I don't think we're really going to see anybody pulling over for the race lead. Now, 35 to go. May not be the time yet to get up there and fight for it, but it's time to start getting into the conversation, right? If I'm 20th, I want to get up to 15th. If I'm 15th, I want to get up to 10th, right? Start to make those little moves. And one driver going to be going the wrong way here is Matt Mara. He got pushed out there through the tri-oval, and he is the lone driver now on the third lane. If nobody wants to work with him, and seemingly that's the case, he's going to drop to the end of this pack. And, I mean, he could be down in 19th in a lapse time. So how quickly things change for Mara there on the outside. He tucks back in line for the moment in looks like 16th position.
Still has plenty of time, though, to work that spot back. Just under 35 to go. We'll be coming up to 30 to go in about 4 laps time. So he's still got all the time in the world to make that up. You don't need to push really hard early on. I'd say the time to go, well, that'll be 10 laps to go at the line. But for now, take it easy. You've done a good job so far. You don't want to ruin that streak now.
And it makes you wonder, how critical is this opening race really, right? I mean, in a Cup Series schedule, we're talking about a 20-race regular season where the goal is simply to make the playoffs. So a lot of drivers say, hey, the real season doesn't really start until we get to round number 2. But Matt Danson won that 2020-2021 championship in this series by just 2 points over Andrew Freenosh. When you look at those drivers, how they did in the season opener, Matt Danson finished second, Freenosh finished 8th. Not like one of those drivers did terrible or vice versa, but you want to get every single point that you can. And Dominic Howe is the guy who won Nolan this race last year. Ross Cato in mid-pack is trying to catch up to Dominic Howe. Dominic Howe is in the top 10 right now in P7. In his number 86 Toyota, he's been in the conversation all night. So Howe looking to go back-to-back on the plate tracks here in the Winter Series.
A good run from Dominic Howe to work his way up to the front of this thing. They're going to get past, I believe that is the 32 entry outside lane of Shane Ewing. In fact, it is dropping back as the field puts him a lap down. There you see the speed difference, what happens when you don't have a drafting partner, and that's why it is so important to come down pit road. That right there showed the difference, as going to check up Brandon 6 as well. And just as I say that, Liam Sheen looks to lead a lap. Can't get clear, though, for the Edo.
And Nieto gets a car length ahead, and it's going to be a cat and mouse game, right? If you're 95 of Bradley Burke, right, second line on the bottom, you really don't want to try to blow yourself up here to keep the 2 in the lead. But, you know, for every car that passes him, you're further back in line. So you're going to have to walk a tightrope and just give it enough to keep the 2 ahead. You saw Kenny Brady make a move to the outside. It's Spook Joseph Tice, who's got an orange Mountain Dew Chevy tonight for Flat Out Motorsports. The 13 machine is up on the outside. That's Jeremy Miller with a Benazzi Major. So the third lane starting to return. Action is picking up here at Daytona. 50 laps down, 30 laps to go. Let's take in the sights and sounds of the virtual Daytona International Speedway with some RaceSpotTV fan immersion. Trouble, Nieto into the outside. He gets into Michael Araya, and it is the big one in turns 3 and 4. Caution number 1 comes at lap number 52, Nolan, and we were just saying that it's coming, and then it happened.
Be easier to count the cars not involved in that wreck. I'm looking at it now, Evan, and I have to say, I genuinely believe every single person behind the 2 in front of that was involved in that wreck. And even then, I think even the guys up in front were. That was quite literally everyone.
It was the whole field. I mean, they were just starting to pack them in, right? We had seen for much of the night the drivers were hanging back a little bit, and I said, now's the time to start getting close. And, well, when they're 3 wide and then they block the entire racetrack like that, there are very few options for drivers to be able to find an opening. Laraya gets through, stays second. He did get into the outside wall. The 24 car may be the only one to have gotten through relatively clean, and that isn't even that clean because Davis was damaged from an earlier incident in this race. So you have to wonder how many competitive race cars are left. Davis has got the back end damage. Laraya's beautiful silver Sim Speed Shop Chevy's got right side damage. Liam see, doesn't have a nose. Dominic Cow is torn up, but even though they're all good on fuel, they're going to come down for repairs. Let's watch it from high above. It all starts with Dominic Cow right there, second in line in the middle, just a little bit out of shape, and then started pinballing.
And that collects every single driver behind this field, and you can see drivers trying to slice through, and Matthew Mara almost got through. He got clipped, though, at the last possible second to get hooked a little bit sideways. I know Brandon Bowie actually got out of that one relatively unscathed as well, but he did have contact with James Ross. The only people that got out of that right behind these guys were those that slowed it down to about 30 miles an hour to weave through the parking lot on the back straightaway. It was bound to happen at some point, and we were looking at it with the fan immersion, right? Front row seat of all the chaos taking place with 3 wide, 4 rows deep. And you can see with all the bumps and bangs, it was only going to take one. And sure enough, one was all it took.
So what a mess. Let's take a look on the board with Brandon Bowie. Let's just ride with him.
I mean, where do you go?
I mean, that looks like a scene out of Cars.
It does.
All he needed to do was do the... Yeah, he just needed to do the Lightning McQueen vault jump right onto an upside-down car to clear it, and he gets away with just a little bit of damage in that one, and a lot of cars on pit road stationary for extended repairs. Through all of that, race lead has changed hands, and you can see as the field paces off of turn number 4, well, we got a couple new faces up and into the conversation, right? Most drivers who pitted and came down for repairs, some of them used it as an opportunity as well, though, to get a little bit of fuel, right? Because our number was basically 40 to 43. If you had opted to run the fuel, that would have made you good to the end. You would have been fine, but you wouldn't have had any in the reserves for overtime. So that's the storyline for some of the drivers in the mid-pack. But how about Brandon Bowie? We have not talked at all about the 34 Toyota Supra tonight as the lights go on top of the pace car. And he now finds himself leading this race. Dane Cruz is up there, Garrett Hess, Brian Chambliss, Andrew Freenosh. I mean, these guys have been hanging it back all night, and now they are in prime position to capitalize.
So, I've been doing a bit of counting here, and if my math on this is correct, Evan, 29 out of the 40 cars collected in that latest big one.
Yeah, that I believe it. Looking at those other angles, that was not even the big one. That was the huge one here at Daytona. And the fun thing is, well, we've still got a long way to go. Still more than a quarter of tonight's race still left to go as we get set for our first restart of the afternoon. I want to remind you that coverage of tonight's race is brought to you by Sim Speed Shop. Sim Speed Shop manufactures sim racing hardware that utilizes the best components available, as well as mixing in real-world components to their products to give you the most realistic racing experience possible. Customize your hardware and rig today by visiting simspeedshop.com for more information. Proud title sponsor the 2021-22 RealSimRacing Sim Speed Shop Winter Series. Pace car is off and in. Green flag flies. We're back underway.
Back underway. You see Ross Cato starting to work the pedals, and as to be expected, right foot down, left foot off. That is to be expected. Only coming up to give a single blip of the shifters, and that's all you need to take here at Daytona. Other than that, foot to the floor from there. A lot of drivers having black flags cleared, having to let the horse cars through, but a good portion of the field was not able to catch the tail end of the pacing line. You had about the top 26 or so that were up there at the front. Everybody else was still either in the pit road or were looking to potentially work their way and catch up to the tail end of the field. We still have about 3-4 cars still in pit road. Those guys include Major, Nicholas Mara, and Jared Weinmaster. They're likely to be out of the race. Up front, Cato looking to go for the lead, makes the move around the outside line, chopped off Dane Cruz's nose. Brandon Bowie will maybe hang on. I think he just held on to the lead there. No, he doesn't. Ross Cato managed to pip him right on the line. Dead heat. They were neck and neck, and how about this? 0 thousandths of a second between them at the line. Oh, and nearly wrecked it already into one.
Yeah, dead tie at the stripe. Bonus point goes to Cato if he hadn't already secured one. So he does get lap lead number 1 of the race. That is a bonus point for him. Brandon Bowie has already led 2 laps to this point. So he has already secured at least a single bonus point. Points, 40 for the race winner, 35 for second, 34 for third, 1 point increments from there on all the way to the rear. Again, point structure same as what you saw in the SimSeats Real Sim Racing Cup Series. Big pushing going on though. Dane Cruz really working hard to get Ross Cato back up there on the outside. A little bit of a look to some 3 wide to the tail end of this lead pack, but it's not going to formulate quite just yet. And we stay locked in side by side. The inside now with a 2-car length advantage off of turn 2.
Here's the thought, right? Does a second big one come along? Because once again, it's not going to take too much, and the racing is only going to grow in intensity. And already 1 car into the grass, deeper in the field, taking to the bus stop chicane. Steve Soa in the number 75 car, having some major struggles for himself in the Chevrolet, so he's going to find himself well down low. I think might have gotten into it with Joseph Tice. That being said, I'm not sure if it was that either. Might have had a technical failure of sorts.
Yeah, there's always weird things that happen. You figure maybe first race of the new season, maybe some drivers trying out new equipment or resetting some of the software. I know that Noel and I took our week off to clean up some things on the computer, so you never know what happens, but let's watch. 3 wide, 75, 5 and 4. And as they go down the back, yeah, I mean, the only thing I can think of is that a monitor went out or something, and his instinct was to pull over to the left, right, Nolan, to just get off the track if he couldn't see, to get out of the way. Very fortunate that it doesn't cause a caution. Very unfortunate for Soa. And now, though, there is a caution flag.
And that one appears to be coming around for Kenny Brady, who collected this one. So that's a bit unfortunate for himself. We'll take a look at the replay now. It's the number 54 machine with Sam Nieto. Interestingly enough, here you can see they're catching Sean Casto, slowing up. Does Brady try to go high? He does. He's not clear, though, and Nieto turns him. That's not Nieto's fault, though. I mean, Kenny Brady turned himself. What just wasn't clear, but he tried to move up.
Yeah, you saw he was thinking about it, and Sam Nieto was there, and obviously the better decision for Kenny Brady would have been to just lift for the slower car in front of him, but he tried to make the gap, and just nowhere to go. And I think Sam Nieto's very fortunate that he didn't get really collected, right? It basically was just the 54 turning himself across the nose of the two. So many times, Nolan, you see a move like that, it takes both cars. So Sam Nieto, I think, very fortunate, all things considered, that he wasn't junked in that one. An unfortunate mistake for Kenny Brady after being so good in his debut here tonight. I think that damage is going to make a good result very difficult because he's missing the whole front end of that race car.
And the good news is, from the sounds of things, no hard feelings from anybody out there on the racetrack. Kenny Brady was, I believe, taking the blame. So he was like, yeah, that's on me. And I have to say, it's pretty clear from the angles that we saw exactly that is a true statement. So Bowie leads from Chambers, from Cato, from Harris, from Cruz for the top 5. I'm a bit surprised, honestly, that the caution didn't come from one of these guys up here in the field, right? The last place you'd expect to see it is, the 2 or 3 car trains deeper in the field. But isn't it funny how that usually works, isn't it? I mean, you usually see these wrecks coming from guys further back in the field who almost have nothing to lose.
Yeah, I mean, there's pros and cons when you get an incident, right? Obviously, nobody wants to be the ones involved in it, but then you can use the yellow as an opportunity to reset, right? To try to catch back up if you were towards the rear of the pack that got spread out. Some drivers don't want a yellow, right? They're like, hey, I'm pretty content with the order in which we're running. I'm not in a rush to, make this thing crazy. And then other drivers, to your point, are going to say, listen, I've kind of been out of the conversation tonight. Let's do this thing and get back up into the mix. So there's so many different things that can happen after a yellow. I mean, again, we went the opening 51 laps of this race without an incident. And now to this point, we have had 2 caution flags in a 10-lap period.
And that is almost to be expected, right? I mean, the cautions breed cautions, especially at a super speedway or a short track. Those seems to be the two types of tracks that are most prone to that sort of philosophy. And Daytona especially. I mean, Talladega, you can usually have some room to work with. Daytona, not so much. It is only 3 lanes wide. You really don't have room for 4 wide, at least not on the iRacing service. I've seen guys do it in real life, but I mean, usually when they do, well, let's just say this, put it this way. There's usually millions of dollars of damage that follows such an attempt.
Yeah, that's also a positive of the sim, right? A little bit less expensive if things get torn up. And I mean, just looking at the cars, I mean, you know, there's a lot of them with some minor damage. I always find it so funny, Nolan, in a race like this, right? We're talking about how, you know, Daytona's the most aerodynamically sensitive track, right? So you want the car to be trimmed out, you want the car to be clean. I mean, all of that is, you know, pretty critical in terms of, you know, having a successful race. But then you could also have guys get damaged and still stay in it because of the draft. So, you know, you got guys up there like the 28 machine Cody Harris, who's a little bit torn up. You know, he's in a position where front-end damage not going to be great, but as long as you stay in the pack, you have a chance. I don't think you're going to be able to lead a pack, but I think there's a way to race with the damaged car at a plate track that you can, you know, still salvage something out of it.
And with 1 lap to green, we are, of course, in the final quarter of this race, which brings a whole other set of issues up, right? I said the moment to kind of start going and making these moves if you want to get a race win is around 10, maybe 15 laps to go if you're a bit further down the order. And with over half the field being involved in a huge one just about 15 laps ago, it makes it a bit of an interesting situation. Who do you want to go with? You obviously don't want to link yourself up with a damaged car. For quite a few cars that are damaged, the only reason why they're up to pace is because they haven't stepped out to make moves yet.
And maybe that's the key, right? Maybe patience is going to prove to be the best part of this race and maybe the overarching winning strategy, if that does end up to be the case. But we're going to try a restart again with the cars that are left in this race and see how this one shakes out. Brandon Bowie in control of the field at the front. Still having some 20-plus cars scored on the lead lap at this moment. The pace car off and in. Bowie gets to dictate when we want to restart this one for the inside line. Green flag back in the air. 18 laps to go at Daytona.
18 to go, and Brandon Bowie clean and green, but you don't want to be out there in front because that means you're going to be under fire when they reel you back in. But that was perfect what Brandon Bowie did. Went up to help out Chambers to get the outside the run, then cut back down to cut off Ross Cato to make sure Cato couldn't gap him by the time he got back around it. And that was perfectly executed from Bowie. Unfortunately, it might be all for naught as Brian Chambers is going to power through on the outside with Cody Harris in tow. Mike Tuchinski going to be going with him in the number 30 Toyota, giving a bit of a bump to the number 28 upon entry of turn 3.
And they're working hard. It's Kaczynski's Extreme Performance Motorsports Toyota pushing Harris on the outside. On the bottom line, it's the MRN, the Mara Racing Network, Chambliss and Bernard machine pushed by the Battle Beaver Toyota of Brandon Bowie. They are all working hard inside of 20 to go, really leaning on each other that time as they came out of the tri-oval. But the inside line sees an advantage. The sun breaks out here in the afternoon at Daytona. Track temperature 101 degrees at this very moment. Everybody good on the fuel to the end of this race. The question is really quickly turned into who's got damage and who doesn't. A lot of these drivers have been able to work their way through the major incidents in this race to stay in contention. Harris is going to have a big run off of 4 here, but again, I always think it's harder to clear for the race lead on the front straightaway than it is on the back because this tri-oval is only going to slow you down. But watch for Kaczynski and for Harris to try to make this happen when they come off of 2 and go down the super stretch. I mean, Bowie is all over the back bumper there at the 9 of Brian Chambliss. Very aggressive, drafted on the bottom. I made a point earlier, I believe it was when Bradley Burke was in that position, that you really don't want to overwork the car, right? You don't want to get those engine temps up at the expense of yourself, right? I mean, you want to help the guy out in front of you, but really you're only concerned about yourself. You don't want to get buried first thing back in line, or further back in line, I should say, down on the inside line of the racetrack. Well, Bowie doesn't care at this point. He is going 100%, and I'm curious, he's got an opening. Does Brandon Bowie dare look to the outside to take the draft from Cody Harris and company? No, he's sticking with Brian Chambliss for now.
Sticking with Chambliss, Bowie still has the bottom. You got Harris still leading this grouping for the outside lane with 14 laps to go. Little bit of 3 wide, just in behind your lead pack here. Well, I guess I should say it's still in the lead pack, but well outside of the top 10. Chambliss leads that last lap of the line, but look at Harris this time. Might be able to poke the nose ahead into one. Obviously great news for Cody Harris. Means they'll almost certainly be cleared down the backstretch if Kuczynski doesn't hook him in the right rear.
Yeah, that's going to be the key thing, right? I mean, you got to be careful on the quarter panels. Now, if you're the pushing car, that's kind of what you want to do, Nolan, right? You don't want to be square, even though that is the most secure position to push the race car in front of you from, because if you're square, you are not getting any fresh air to the nose of that race car. So you do want to offset yourself a little bit to allow some of that grill opening to get some clean, cold air. However, if you get alongside the quarter panel, that can go sideways quickly. They are squirrely, though, in the middle of this pack. Dominic Howe gets together with Kyle Kamer. That was almost a mess back on row 5 or 6. And now we are 3 wide. Kamer's into the outside wall.
Oh, he's going to survive it, though. Don't come down into Brandon 6. More contact with the 66 car, but this time they will survive it. Kyle Kamer is going to hold with it. That was a lucky escape there for the number 8 SK Motorsports machine, who will be able to try to power back and maybe regain lost ground, but I think that might have been the nail in the coffin for Kamer's attempts to go for a race win.
And there's the second look. There was a bit of contact between those two in the run to 1, and then they got together again in the center of 1 and 2, and it put Kamer into the outside wall. He did a very good job, though, of pulling that car off the fence, right? I mean, you really got to give it a yank down to the left-hand side to get it off the wall, but he was able to do so without coming down into traffic, and it killed the third lane, so we are back to 2 wide. I don't know, 12, 13 rows deep. Bradley Burke not happy on the radio. He's trying to get a little bit more coordination to go in, and some of the drivers further towards the back with some rear end damage. But at this point, Nolan, where are you going to go, right? I mean, we still, this time by, have 11 laps to go. That is a long way at a place like Daytona. But unless you go into the third lane, there is not much room to work with if you're not inside of the top 10 right now.
To bail out of that one on the bottom side, just gonna stick it on the apron and allow for the Field of Thunder on through. I think that's a wise move, especially when they're 3 wide. There's no way they'd be able to get around you on the outside lane. You're probably just gonna be more liable to cause a wreck by trying to let them through. So staying on the inside, definitely what you want to do if you're a lap car at this point. Just keep it on the apron and hope that nobody spins out into you. But you'll be 10 laps to go this time by. You mentioned it yourself. That's still a long time to go. That's almost 10 minutes yet of racing, and anything can happen. We've seen us go from having about 40 undamaged cars down to about 11 undamaged cars in the span of, I would say, just about 5 seconds. So 10 minutes, oh, that is still a long time to go, and there's still plenty of time for us to have potentially as few as maybe even 10 cars still with us by the checkered flag.
And you have to wonder, is this going to go green to the end? We have seen some classic finishes here at Daytona in RSR history. You alluded to it earlier on tonight. Could tonight be another one of them? We're fixing to find out here very shortly. We are inside of 10 laps to go in the Sim Speed Shop 200. Benazzi Major's slow-lapped car going to hold the apron. Not a factor as the race leaders go on to by, and now here comes the third lane again. It is led by Grant Davis. He is pushed by Brandon 6. They've got some customer support, if you will, with Nick Silver joining the party. It is on for the win at Daytona.
And 3 wide, so many rows deep behind your race leaders. It's all kicking off. I'm keeping my eye on Grant Davis along with Brandon Six, working the top side. They're picking these drivers off one row after another. They're not trying to be too aggressive. They're just doing what they have to do, being as patient as you can possibly hope for at a track like this, and they've worked their way almost to the top 10. Whoa, heads up! Rainbow goes up high. Freenos trying to follow, but couldn't get up in time. Kuczynski thinking about also going up high. He's got to make that decision fast, so decides to stick with it in that second lane. Oh, trouble behind! That's Dominic Howe, I think, that just got turned middle of the field. Somehow we don't see a wreck that takes everybody out, but they have to be careful to slow up here for this yellow flag in the middle. They're going to get through it just in time, and Dominic Howe somehow was the only driver that got fully sideways.
Well, I was about to tell you that I had a feeling it was coming again, and it looked like, was it the 15 car underneath him that may have got a little bit loose at Rhett McBride? Let's take a second look from the drone. Following the cars down the back straightaway. Dominic Howe's the white Toyota with the red numbers on the roof, right in the middle of the road. They're going to go into 3 and just a little bit of a move for the 15 car.
Oh, and Bradley Burke took a shot to the outside wall from Jeremy Miller. That sent him careening down to the Parker, who had also turned Bradley Burke, coincidentally enough. So while Howe was the only driver that got fully spun around, there were about 7, 8 cars or so that were totally involved. And this means green flag, under 10 laps to go. This could be a natural green-white checker, though I don't think it'll be quite 2 laps to go. I'm thinking 3, maybe 4 if we get lucky.
Yeah, might get a little bit more out of this one if you do get a 3 or 4 lap to go restart coming up to end this race. Of course, you can see a lot of cars still in this race, Nolan. We talked earlier tonight as well about penalty points and all that. One thing we haven't mentioned tonight is claiming yellows, and that's because no one's claimed a single one. So they've all gone to a post-race review in this race. So some drivers are going to have to be dealing with that over the course of the season. Heavily policed per the driver's request, right? I mean, they want clean racing, so they've given input on those kind of penalties and whatnot, and penalty points is the system that's in place, so that might be a discussion a little bit later on in the year, but I haven't seen anybody do anything outrageous, right? I mean, Kenny Brady made a mistake. It was pretty obvious, Nolan, what he was trying to do, but I mean, other than that, the other incidents, the major, giant pileup, and then this most recent incident, were both, I think, racing deals, right? I mean, when you're 3 wide, any mistake can cause that as a result. I think it's pretty tough to be overly critical of somebody wrecking in the final 10 laps of a Daytona race when they're 3 wide, because even if it was an actual NASCAR Xfinity Series driver in the car, they're probably also wrecking 3 wide right inside of the final 10 laps of the race. So I've been very impressed with what we've seen out of these guys tonight, and just really hope we get a thrilling finish here that this race is deserving of.
It's just classic Daytona racing, right? That sees these messes, start to play up. It only takes, that one little move, and at pretty much any other track, I mean, even a track like Auto Club, that even there is still wider, if not just as draft heavy at Daytona. You can get away with moving a few inches. You just can't do that, though, at Daytona. Even Talladega probably would have been able to get away with something like that. It's just such a fine, fine line. There is a reason why Daytona remains one of the premier, I would say, events here for NASCAR racing every single year. There's a reason why it has to date, and it is for the type of action that we see here tonight. It is a race that can just have such thrilling races. I still remember that one time when tickets for the 500 were looking to sell, and they sold out within a few hours of the tickets going live, which goes to show that it can still have some good racing. And this for an interesting call, Brian Chambliss, your race leader, taking the outside lane for the restart.
Interesting. We don't normally talk about lanes a ton at Daytona, but I think it is pretty noteworthy because every restart that we've seen tonight, and almost every restart that we see, the bottom's the advantage, right? And I don't think it's because the bottom is where the control car is, just when you're getting up to speed and you're going through the gears. That is just the shorter way around the racetrack, and therefore that's going to be the faster lane right off of the get-go. So a bold move for Brian Chambliss to go to the outside line. We will see if it works for him, right? Maybe a coordinated effort as well. That's something to keep in mind. You know, is he trying to work with his teammate there, Bowie on the inside, right? I mean, is Bowie going to let him get down in line? I think that's most likely the story that we're looking at, and probably the explanation.
So 5 laps remaining, and it's all about to kick off. There's no time to just wait around now. If you want to get up there to the front, especially with these guys out there.
And side by side, down the back straightaway they go. Cato in front, pushed by Andrew Friedosh. Friedosh has been inside of the top 3 outside of a pit cycle tonight. Now he's looking at going for the race lead. But the 9 car at Chambliss, with his teammate pushing him, will lead Nolan with 4 laps to go.
And some minor apologies for some slight technical difficulties coming on through. We'll get those sorted hopefully in the next 2 seconds or so here. It is a mad drag race though for these drivers all the way out through this field. Brian Chambliss looking to work with Brandon Bowie. Ross Cato working the top side. He has also got Andrew Friedosh working with him. Cody Harris tucked in line as well. Cruz third in line for the outside lane. And now from the outside, Friedosh pushing Ross Cato up to the front.
And now you wonder, right? There is no winning you're in. There are no playoffs in this Winter Series. What is more important for you, the race win or walking out of the season opener with a handful of points? 3 laps to go. The advantage just barely to the 9 car on the inside line. It was 6/1000ths of a second that time. Chambliss leads on the bottom. Cato challenging from the outside line in side-by-side racing right now.
Side by side, Chambliss clear. Here comes Bowie. Oh, trouble! Huge crash in behind! 1 car up and into the fencing there. It's a huge mess. I think that might have been one of the Mara brothers, Matthew Mara, I believe it was, that got up and into the catch fencing on the back straightaway. A tremendous wreck, though, will put us now under green-white-checkered territory. Overtime, part 1. Coming up here at Daytona. I think it was Matthew Mara getting into it with Kyle Kamer and potentially Brandon Six also in the mix of this, as so many drivers got collected. And how about Steve Soa dicing his way through the wreck? Take a look at the replay. There you see Nicholas Mara kicked up and into the air by Kamer and Six, and you just barely saw Soa squeak through from the bottom side. He was trying to avoid a spinning James Ross, who was sliding down the racetrack. Also, just getting out of this, I believe William Schmidt had a really close call. He got a front row seat and a face full of Mara as they're kicked up into the air.
It's just another tough break, right? I mean, when you're 3 wide like that, something like that can happen oh so quickly. And for, you know, the 23 machine of Matthew Mara there on the bottom, he was a little bit high. Kamer was probably a little bit low, and it just all comes together, and that is the 3rd incident tonight stemming from 3 wide racing. So because of that, we go back to the caution. Now we do know we're going to overtime, Nolan, and that decision by a lot of these cars to come back in and top off on fuel back after that first incident on lap number 52 is looking pretty smart, because they may have been able to save a little bit over the course of these now 4 yellows we have seen since then, but they would not have been able to save enough for multiple restart attempts. And because they opted to top it off, I don't think we have any concerns on fuel going here into a possible 3 overtime restarts.
So 3 total attempts. We are currently getting set for attempt number 1. 2 laps remaining, and well, they didn't make it back with 5 to go, Evan. It was just, again, that 3-wide calamity that Daytona so often causes. And you have to start to think, right? How could this play out further in this race with 2 laps to go? If there's ever a time where you have anything in your back pocket, and maybe an extra 20 horsepower you've been looking to hide from the race officials, now would definitely be the time to unleash it.
And now you just wait, right? I mean, now you start thinking, right? I mean, I posed the question before the incident, right? Do you want the win? Do you want the points? This is the point as the driver, Nolan, where you're running through all these different hypotheticals in your mind, right? You know, if I do this for the restart, how's it going to work out for me? And listen, I think we did a good job at deciphering the strategy for those lead 2 cars, right? You know, your race leader choosing the outside line because he's got his teammate starting third, or second, I should say. If he was on the bottom, then Bowie likely would have slid back on the outside. So by choosing the top, it was very clear. I mean, you could see it on the last restart. Bowie hung back like a whole car length. He was next to the 4th placed car, not the leader, right? I think because you got friends up there, I would be very surprised if they don't do that very same strategy. And if you got 2 teammates pushing on a 2-lap restart, that's going to be really tough to beat.
Bit tough to beat indeed, so I have to see how these drivers could potentially navigate through that and potentially overcome such a challenge. And do we opt to go 1 to green this time by? We do. So the countdown begins, and something tells me, Evan, we might be seeing a 2nd attempt coming up here in about 2 minutes.
Yeah, normally when you get 1 overtime attempt, it's not just 1 overtime attempt at a restart. Funny how that works, right? But it is limited to 3. You know that sometimes you might see unlimited attempts at an overtime finish. It is only 3. And we'll see just how many of those restart attempts need to be exhausted for us to take the green flag and the checkered flag here from Daytona International Speedway. So let's recap the running order as we pace off at turn number 2. Brian Chambliss is the control car. He has once again decided to go to the outside line for the restart, and he will bring us to the green flag. His teammate Brandon Bowie, 2nd place inside of row number 1. Ross Cato's 3rd, Cody Harris is 4th. They're on row 2. Andrew Freenosh is 5th. Mike Kaczynski is 6th. They are on row number 3. Then you got Rabel and Cruz on row 4. Davis and Trudell on row number 10. There are still more than 20 race cars in contention for this one as we get set for attempt number 1 of 3 at a green-white-checkered finish in the season opener for the 2022 RealSimRacing Sim Speed Shop Winter Series. Pace cars down and in this time. Again, the 9 car on the outside of the front row is the control car. Look for him to beat the 34 to the line and tuck in line. Also remember, you cannot change lanes before the start-finish line. Green flag in the air. 2 laps to go from Daytona.
Chambliss already clear from the field. Tucks back into line behind Brandon Bowie. Bowie does not look at outside yet. Cato might force the issue here, though, from the bottom. And Ross Cato backs it out. Caution already. Didn't even make it to turn number 1 for guys further in the back. It was Matthew Marr, I think, that got into it again. Dominic Howe might have been right in the middle of this as well. So yet more issues. We'll take another look at this one here. Liam Sheen comes up, and Howe's just left with nowhere to go.
And Dominic Howe has claimed responsibility for the incident, so that is the first claimed caution flag of the afternoon. And Dominic Howe will take it into the longest line of penalty for that one. So just squeeze the cars up on the outside a little bit too much, and he'll get the EOL. And turns out your not so bold prediction, Nolan, came true, and that was not our only attempt. We'll have to re-rack them and try again.
Try it again. 2nd time is the charm. That's how the thing goes, isn't it?
Something like that, right? Hopefully, for the guys up front, they would prefer it not to be 3rd time's the charm because, you know, they're up front. They're enjoying where they're running. They want to get this thing done with.
this should be an interesting one, to say the very least. So under caution once again, and that might be the nail in the coffin for other guys like Matthew Mara, who are already in the mix of this. Of course, Dominic Howe, this is just insult to injury for him. He was collected big time in the huge one of the many drivers that was, as well, he was up in the top group in the cars as well, so he still has no front clip, and that obviously, in this most recent ring, has not necessarily been helped out at all by that one. So it's Chambliss, Bowie, Cato, Freenosh, Harris, and Cruz for the top 3 rows. And so far, once again, we've had pretty much every single caution we've had since that major, huge one earlier on in this race come from guys in the back portion of the field. So again, the interesting trend continues.
Yeah, and, you know, I like seeing the gamesmanship. I mean, not everything, you know, on the outside it may look, you know, just total craziness at a place like this, but, you know, on the inside there's a lot of finesse that goes into this super speedway racing on a green flag run, on a restart. I mean, we talk about the intricacies of the 9 and the 34 machine, try to coordinate these restarts as teammates and happen to wait to the start-finish line, right? I mean, there's so many little things that go into being a good plate racer. Some drivers are really good at plate racing, right? I mean, you talk about Cup Series names. Brad Keselowski jumps to mind, right? Dale Earnhardt Jr. always had success on some of the plate races as well. Jeff Gordon got his fair share of them too back in the day. So, you know, there's a lot of drivers who are very successful on plate races, and that's true in iRacing as well. And there's a lot of drivers that just don't like them, right? And, you know, no surprise, you know, we talked about Dominic Howe a little bit earlier. This race is kind of fallen away from that based on, you know, some of the incidents. But he won last year. I mean, he was up and into the conversation all night long here in this one as well, until he was involved in that incident. So some drivers just seem to get it, you know, at these plate races. And I just really want to make sure that one of these next 2 attempts that we've still got left in the back pocket can run itself out, because no one likes a race ending under the yellow flag.
Oh, absolutely. I have to say, I think races that end under the yellow flag, they can be some of the most disappointing finishes you could possibly see in the world of motorsports. So I'd honestly rather have a race end under green, where a guy laps the whole field, as opposed to a race that ends under a yellow flag behind a safety car with lights on it. So I would rather, you know, see this race go green as well. I'm not saying we can't have a big dramatic crash at the end of this race. Just save it for the white flag.
Yeah, just save it for the end, and we'll see if that's what they do. Once again, same restart procedure in order. The 9 car is up on the outside. The 34 car is down on the bottom. So that gives, you know, Freenosh the tricky position, because he's going to lead the top. I mean, I do say it's going to be difficult, right, for those, for the rest of the field to beat those teammates, because they're going to be coordinated, they're going to be talking, and I promise you Brandon Bowie is going to be pushing Brian Chambliss with everything he's got until maybe at a turn 4. But 2 cars can't beat 4, right? I mean, if the outside gets going, the big thing is on a green-white-checkered all-in is the second lap, right? You're basically using that first lap to get up to speed. Once we get down the backstretch on the opening lap, we're finally at speed, and that's when things will get interesting. So I'm not going to go out and say that Chambliss and Bowie have got this one locked up. They're sitting really good. But if Chambliss, you know, he can't block if Freenosh starts working with somebody else, and I think we could see a surprise winner here tonight. This is going to be very exciting. Looking for attempt number 2 this time by.
Attempt number 2, Chambliss yet again takes the outside lane. On both restarts, he's chosen that lane. He has been able to get well clear of Brandon Bowie before they hit turn 1 and kind of check out that inside lane. So that's going to be a strategy that will continue to pay off for him as this race goes along. But he's already sitting in behind, waiting to see what Chambliss will do from the top side. Green flag drops, and we are back underway. Chambliss has room to go down, has to wait till after start finish, and now, just as to be expected, drops down right in front of Brandon Bowie. We're back underway.
Yep, clean race start for everybody, and they'll race off to turn number 1. So Bowie going to give a push to his teammate that riding a sheet up the road as Brian Chambliss is leading late here this afternoon at Daytona. What does Cato do? He'll take a step to the outside. He gets in front of Freenosh and Cruz, and now here's where that run's going to come down the back straightaway.
The run is there, and as the speed builds, Freenosh could give a huge shove to Cato and work his way up to the top. So Ross Cato in the number 12 Ford Mustang looking to rip the top side. Can they make it back to the white flag about 300 feet away, blazing down the start-finish straight? They will make it back. This race is now official.
This race is official. Checkered flag next time by Chambliss low, Cato high, side by side for the race lead. 3 wide behind as Garrett Hess will shove Mike Kuczynski out of the way. He's trying to make a middle lane, but it's not going to work. He gets squeezed out by the 7. Oh, the 9 car gets loose. Chambliss gets loose of the teammate of his bumper, Brandon Bowie. He'll drop down to the apron. He'll lose positions. Ross Cato to the race lead in 3 and 4. He'll get a push now, and it's Freenosh, the challenger, on the outside. This one gonna come down to the very dying moments. Ross Cato holds the bottom. Freenosh gets a shove. Can he get to the outside? Dead heat. And by 2 1/1000ths, Andrew Freenosh deals the season opener win from Daytona International Speedway.
Oh my God, you're not going to get much closer of a finish than that. Freenosh punched his ticket through as they wrecked behind them. I think it was Dane Cruz and maybe picked up a 3rd place. Check that, Brandon Bowie. Wow, Wrecking will take 3rd place as they crashed after start finish. What a drive, though, for Andrew Freenosh to take that one away at the stripe. Take a look back at it this time around. That was the number 9 machine of Brian Chambliss who got loose, and that right there cost him a race win.
And this high above look is going to show you the story, right? I mean, it costs Chambliss there, who will come home for a 7th place finish, but Freenosh is way back here. But Bowie's not on the bumper of the 12 until now, and here's the speed. Freenosh has got the run. He stays to the outside. 12 car sees it coming, tries to squeeze, and by 2 1/1000ths of a second, Andrew Freenosh, after not being in the conversation for much of this race, will start his road towards another Winter Series championship in victory lane in the season opener.
Burning it down, rightfully so, on the front straightaway. Goodness gracious, we talked about how we might get one of those iconic Daytona finishes, and boy, oh boy, did Daytona ever deliver in force here today.
Let's take a look top to bottom at your Sim Speed Shop full race results from tonight's Daytona season opener. Freenosh gets the win, Cato finishes 2nd, and Bowie finishes 3rd. We'll talk with all of those drivers in just a few moments. Dane Cruz and Cody Harris finish inside of the top 5. They're ahead of Kyle Trudell, Brian Chambliss, Mike Kuczynski, Nick Silver, and Josh Ball, your top 10.
That leaves Chris Rabel down in 11th place with Rhett McBride in 12th. It's Garrett Hess 13th with Steve Soa in 14th. William Schmidt 15th. Dylan Parker rounds out 16th place. The first driver outside of that lead grouping, Sean Casto, all the way down to 17th place with Nieto at 18th. Tom Moreno and Trey Brownie round out the top half of your field.
Continuing on down through the running order, Joseph Tice, Nick Cohan, Jeremy Miller, Brandon Six, and Matt Mara are inside of the top 25. Grant Davis is 26th, ahead of Michael Araya 27th, Liam Sheen 28th, Bradley Burke 29th, and Kyle Kamer 30th.
And lastly, that leaves Tim Johnston in the 31st place with Shane Ewing in 32nd. DeBarro, the last driver on the lead lap, in 33rd. Dominic Howe, 2 down in 34th, with Weinmaster not finishing the race down in 35th. He'll join the likes of Nicholas Mara, James Ross, Munatsi Major, Kenny Brady, and Malik Ray down in the garage for the 40-car field here from Daytona.
To look top to bottom at your Sim Speed Shop full race results. Sim Speed Shop manufactures sim racing hardware that utilizes the best components available, as well as mixing in real-world racing components to their products to give you the most realistic racing experience possible. Customize your hardware and rig today by visiting simspeedshop.com for more information. Proud title sponsor of the 2022 RealSimRacing Sim Speed Shop Winter Series. So we're going to do our best here now to chat with some of your top finishers. And, I mean, it continues to just be impeccable how he's able to continue to do this on such a regular basis. Nolan, we will talk with our race winner, Andrew Freenosh, here down trackside. Andrew, congratulations on the race win. I mean, you were not much of a story in this race for most of it, right? I mean, we checked in with you when you guys cycled through to the race lead at the pit cycle there midway, but I mean, other than that, it seems like your strategy of staying out of the chaos until the end was the right one. Congrats.
Yeah, how about that? We finally won a race at Daytona. I always wanted to do that in RSR. We finally did it, so that was awesome. I mean, I just was points racing the whole night. Led a lap, stayed in the back, try not to wreck, and they had that big one, and we just ended up front. We were just riding, trying to, like I said, just points race. So I was committed to pushing the 12 there to the win on the last few starts, and got him clear, and I don't know what happened to Brandon and Brian there, and somehow we ended up front. I don't understand these plate things, and I don't know how the heck we won this, to be honest, Evan.
Well, I'll just simply repeat what Tom Morano said on the radio, and that is, I don't know how you do it, right? Always finding a way to get into the conversation. Making the transition, obviously, to these Xfinity Series cars, right? They drive different than that of the Cup cars. At one point that we were talking about on the show tonight was how different the Xfinity, super speedway package in specific is different to that of the current Cup super speedway package. What were some of the keys to being able to do what you wanted with that race car tonight?
Yeah, very interesting. It was it would kind of get a little squirrely on you on entry. You kind of had to lift. It's a lot better than the Cup cars, a lot more chaotic, but you can kind of build runs and go every direction. Like I said, I'm not a plate driver, so I don't really know how to explain this stuff. I think, got lucky tonight. So you could definitely pass a lot easier. You didn't really need as many teammates to go out and make moves, so that's nice, but I'm not really a fan of plate racing at all, so I'm just happy to get through this one. Half enough win. I can't believe it.
How important is this, not just the race win, but I think more importantly, the points that are associated with it, right? I mean, you mentioned all you were doing was points racing, and it was something else we talked about, right? Different than the Cup Series. There's no win to get into the playoffs. It's all about points. How critical is a 41-point night to open this 10-race campaign?
Yeah, that's huge. I say my weak points are super speedways and road courses, so if we can check one of them off the list and have a good night, that's awesome. I don't know if we're going to be making the full season. I would love to, but unfortunately my job, if it snows and I got to go out and plow, so that's kind of just my responsibility now. So I'm trying to make it all, but you never know with Mother Nature. So we just came out tonight trying to have fun. Plan on making all the starts, but probably not going to happen. So points racing, yes, but in the back of my mind, I kind of know it might not be for anything.
And tell us a little bit about the car. I know that everybody in chat and some of the drivers as well enjoyed the bring back horsepower paint scheme on that 88 Chevy.
Yeah, I'm pretty vocal. I don't like the new car next year, so we used to run 900 horsepower in these things with a tiny spoiler, so let's get back to that. Let's start a campaign and try to put horsepower back in these NASCARs. And, they took away more this year. So I want them to start putting it back in. And that would be steps in the right way. So I can do my little part on the broadcast. And maybe, you never know, it might start something. I just want the conversation to start about how we keep losing horsepower. And it seems like they never want to add it back. So just raise awareness for that. And maybe we can do something about it.
It's definitely a popular sentiment amongst the drivers. Andrew, we'll let you get out of here and celebrate. You're already back at RSR Victory Lane before the Cup Series championship belt has even arrived to you. So continuing your winning ways here at a Monday night. Congratulations, though, on the win, and we'll catch you next time.
Thanks so much, guys. Have a good week.
The race winner tonight from Daytona, Andrew Freenosh, 1-for-1, Nolan, continues to be oh so impressive. Let's chat with the second half of that battle. Ross Cato was 2/1000ths of a second away from being in victory lane, and you're standing by with him.
Ross, just too stinking thou lost you the race today, and you have to, I imagine that you're probably kicking yourself a little bit for it, but overall, second place, considered all the attrition that took place throughout the middle of the race and all the damage you took as a result of that one, that's still pretty darn good.
Yeah, overall, above and beyond what I hoped for tonight, I was hoping to lead one lap at least and then get a top 10, something like that. So this podium finish, this P2, with a lap lead, edged it just ahead of Brandon Bowie in one of the laps. It's just really exciting to perform like this. And yeah, when we crossed the line, I thought that I'd won the race, but no better guy to lose to than Andrew. He is responsible for a lot of the success I had in this race. He was a very good drafting partner, and just really glad to be part of such a thrilling finish. And I should have run him up the racetrack a little bit more towards the end, but all you can do is all you can do, and I'm just glad I did well.
And you certainly come away with a really strong result here today. And I imagine part of that was looking to be potentially due to the, of course, pit stop strategy that we saw starting to play out under green. We didn't expect to see green flag stops, but at the end of the day, you were among pretty much everybody that came on down for those green flag stops around lap number 45. What was the pit strategy like for you? Was it just run until it's dry?
Yes, we wanted to make sure that we came in together, the guys that I was working with. And as you well know, Daytona and Talladega, this can be your undoing. It has been my undoing many times. It was my undoing in the Talladega race and the Cup Series last go round. So my heart rate always ticks up a lot of units when it's time to pit. And luckily, I hit my marks pretty good. It kind of got in there a little too gingerly, but better safe than sorry. And I was glad to overcome that pit cycle and go on to be successful. And missed a huge wreck. I got a piece of it, and I was glad to miss that overall and to really just survive.
Of course, next race up is going to be Auto Club Speedway in just 1 week's time. Auto Club in its own right can be just as crazy, if not more so at times, the Daytona. Do you have a plan coming over for Auto Club in just 1 week's time?
Just practice more of my throttle discipline and saving that right front tire. It's always been a struggle of mine. I have had some success at Auto Club. I really like that kind of pavement. That I love scooting the car up the racetrack out of 4, and just that kind of style of those 2-mile long tracks. So hopefully I can find some success there. And just really excited for this schedule. I think it's going to be a real banger of a schedule that we have this winter, and I think we're really going to keep the fans enthused.
Well, fingers crossed then that we'll be able to find you up there on the podium, if not in victory lane, more throughout the course of this winter season. Thanks for joining us here tonight, Ross. Best of luck in Fontana in 1 week.
Thank you so much. I had fun.
That's Ross Cato bringing it home in the number 2 spot by just 2 thousandths of a second. And we'll see if we can maybe dial up your third place finisher next. Brandon Bowie crossing the finish line sideways here tonight at Daytona. What a wild finish for you.
Yeah, Nolan, that was honestly a little disappointing. Didn't get the finish that I felt like our team deserved, but good, definitely a great effort. Yeah, that race was pretty good. Kind of stayed in the back and kind of just tried the fuel strategy a little bit at the beginning, which kind of helped us run, I think, about 3 or 4 laps longer than anybody else could, which kind of gave us the leg up if it stayed green, which we were kind of hoping it would, but unfortunately it didn't, which is fine. So it was just a matter of, especially when that big, I guess it took out maybe about half the field. And then had a couple teammates stay up front with me, and we kind of just tried to manage the restarts up there from there, and got to the end, and unfortunately after the couple green-white checkers, made it to the actual white flag and kind of pushed Brian a little bit, and which turned him a little bit. Thankfully he didn't wreck, but that pretty much cost us our chance of winning. But not the finish overall that I want as the team owner, but as the driver, I'll take a P3.
Of course, you've been putting together a lot of solid performances over the last few races in the regular Cup Series season, and I hope we'll be seeing more of those going forward in the winter season. Do you have any plans on where you want to end up points-wise in this 10-week championship?
I think if I just finish top 5, honestly, in the standings, that just allows me to consistently just kind of just keep my momentum going. Wins are great and everything, but for me, just because I don't drive the Xfinity cars as often, so this 10-week season is actually going to kind of be a little bit of a challenge for me, just to see if I can adapt to running these cars. I honestly haven't ran these cars competitively probably in about 3 to 4 years. Did a couple iRacing Open Series races and seasons, but I think overall top 5 in the standings, and I think I'll be satisfied. I mean, of course, you got Andrew, who's hard to beat. Every race, even he comes out of nowhere and wins this one. But yeah, I think just top 5, and I'm pretty satisfied with that.
And of course, next week up, we swing back over to California for the race at Fontana. Do you have any plans on what the race at Auto Club might look like for you?
Ooh, kind of already done a little practice and a little testing there. Because it is at night, it probably will provide a lot of pushing, kind of similar to this on the straightaways. But it's going to really be about that tire management. I think we all know the Auto Club is pretty bad with the tire wear. So it's going to be all about, who's going to burn them up in the first 15 laps, go from a hero to a 0. So, if you can manage your tires, and be there at the end of the run, and really from there and really start picking them off one by one, I think that person probably has a great chance of winning. But I'll be honest with you that this field is pretty stacked, so I know Andrew is probably the number one person that everybody has on their list of winning every race. Well, there's a lot of fast guys. I know our team is I feel like it's really strong coming into the season, even after just this first race. So I think there'll be some surprises on what people can do in these 10 races. But if I don't make it, and win the championship, then that's fine. But I actually plan on looking back and watching some of the races and seeing everything that happened.
Well, fingers crossed that we'll be finding yourself up in victory lane, hopefully in the next few weeks, if not at least on the podium. Thank you, Brandon, for taking the time to join us here tonight, and best of luck next week in California.
All right, thanks, Nolan.
That's Brandon Bowie bringing it home in 3rd place tonight. And Evan, that wraps out the drivers on the podium. What a wild finish, to say the very least.
I mean, it's Daytona, right? We know what we could expect coming into a race like this. I wouldn't say that 51-lap stretch without a yellow was calm, right? We had close calls, but everybody had a game plan, right? We saw drivers get up, lead a lap, drop to the back, right? I mean, some drivers clearly wanted to stay up there, other drivers wanted to wait. And once we got that one yellow, we kind of knew what we were getting. And it was, 3 wide and just push it until we wreck. And that happened a couple times, right? That is super speedway racing with these Xfinity Series cars. But I cannot say enough about how Andrew Friedosh just continues to just win races with ease, right? I mean, this was strategized, right? Stayed back, worked his way up, and then, just puts himself in position and steals it at the very last moment. I mean, another perfect way for him to get the job done. And the big question is going to be, right, is he able to make all 10 starts? If he can win 5-6 races like we've seen him do in the past, could he even be in contention for a top 5 of the championship, even if he misses a single race, right? That's the storyline as well. But they're going to be chasing Andrew. We know that. But because of the threat that he may not be able to compete full-time, I think everybody's got to be up on the wheel, right? Brandon Bowie can easily contend for a championship. I think he's selling himself short talking about top 5. I think he's somebody else that could be in the mix.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, Brandon Bowie, I won't say he's had the greatest of seasons in the 2021 SimSeats Cup Series season, but of course, he had some very, very strong performances later on in the year, really started to come into form, and in these Xfinity cars, he's shown he's already comfortable making some moves that other people might not necessarily feel comfortable with going with. He absolutely has got championship winning potential, and I have to hope that we see him back up in victory lane. I have a feeling that's where he feels most at home.
And of course, we go back to Fontana. Haven't been there in quite some time, right? Was it on the Cup Series schedule? NASCAR had some scheduling issues trying to get to Southern California early in the year, right? So we haven't been to Auto Club in a long time, but it stays here on the Winter Series campaign. It's going to be a night race at a 2-mile D-shaped oval, very similar to the kind of racing you're going to see here tonight. I love, Auto Club in Michigan. I think that those two sister tracks are really fun, and I think it's going to be an exciting race. Different challenge, and now we'll start to pick up on who's a contender and maybe who's a pretender for the championship once we get into these next couple of weeks. I mean, look at the different kinds of tracks that make up the first half of the year. Late track, 2-mile oval, short track, road course, intermediate. I mean, 5 different disciplines in 5 weeks is really going to test these drivers.
It is going to be a test of endurance. It is going to be a test of overall versatility. I mean, you have so many different tracks. You've got the 1-mile ovals. You've got the short tracks. You've got the road courses, the super speedways, the 1.5-mile speedways. You've got day races. You've got night races, and everything pretty much in between. It is the perfect 10-race season to decide who can really be the best in just a 10-week stretch on all types of tracks, especially in these Xfinity cars, which, as we've proven before, they are a bit more difficult to drive than the Cup cars, and I'm gonna be honest with you, that makes them a little bit more entertaining to watch as well.
I'm with you, and we're looking forward to that one coming up next Monday night on November the 29th. But until then, that's it for us here tonight for Vine Racing's virtual Daytona International Speedway. On behalf of our entire team at RaceSpotTV for RealSimRacing and our sponsors at Sim Speed Shop, I want to thank you for tuning in and congratulate to Andrew Freenosh again in Victory Lane. For Hugo Luis, Nolan Rempel, and myself, Evan Pasoko, thanks for tuning in. We're back next Monday for the virtual Auto Club Speedway, that race and every race of the 2022 Real Sim Racing Sim Speed Shop Winter Series can be found exclusively here on RaceSpot TV. Until next time, good night from Daytona Beach.